Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Beyond the podcast where we send you a letter in the mail. You think that it's a nice package, but it's actually an envelope full of dick confetti. Woo! Welcome to this podcast episode. Today's podcast is about world news, specifically America news this time. But if you guys have been with the podcast for a long time, you remember we have done these episodes in the past where basically I just cover news that has happened in the world that some of it's a little zany, some of it's very interesting, a lot of it is very intriguing, and we just kind of go through it and give our thoughts on it. This episode specifically has some really crazy stuff, including painting streets white, which is crazy, splitting states into 3 different parts and changing up the entire way that the United States works, as well as a few interesting other little outliers, such as, a mom accidentally feeding her kid THC macaroni, people printing out Zuckerberg posters and cutouts and putting them on the front lawn of the White House, and a bunch of other stuff. So anyways, I appreciate you guys coming into this episode. If you want to support this episode, you can do so by using my Amazon link, amazonbrian.com. I'm serious. It really, really does help. So please do use that if you do use Amazon. All it'll do is redirect you to the homepage of Amazon, and then from there, everything that you purchase within a 24-hour period gives us a small commission without costing you a dime. Now, let's just jump right into this episode. Very interesting. I want to jump into the very, big stories, which is recently I found out that California has a plan, specifically Los Angeles has a plan to paint the streets white. And when I first heard this, I thought it was insane. My dad actually had heard this from some people, and he talked to me about it. And I was like, that has to be somebody not knowing how to use the internet. That has to be somebody going on The Onion and just not having a clue and hearing a fake story. But this is actually a true story. I've looked it up, and it's a backed up story. So the idea is LA wants to start painting streets white to help reflect sunlight off of the ground, because black pavement and blacktop absorbs the heat and pulls it right on into the street, raises the temperature, and I'm not sure if the full intention is to cool the city or to help with global warming. I'm not sure what the posted intention is that they claimed, but it costs $40,000 a mile. And I wish with podcasts there was some visuals, because I would love to show you guys what this looks like. But you can just look up Los Angeles painting streets white, and there's a couple of really nice produced videos with drone footage and stuff. I think BuzzFeed did it. But yeah, it's a real thing. It's really happening. It is really happening. Somebody out there really actually does believe that this is going to work. And I suppose there's some truth in it, reflection, white, black absorbs, right? But I don't think that this is going to work the way they think it's going to work. I think there's a lot of flaws. So the first thing that pops into my head immediately, as soon as I heard this, I said, what are they going to do about graffiti? Because when you think about graffiti on blacktop, you don't really see, I never really have ever seen graffiti on blacktop, especially any good graffiti, because everyone knows that if you graffiti blacktop on the street, overnight they're going to send a guy who's just going to blast it with acid, then they're going to shoot it with water, then they're going to suck it up, and then they're going to brush it, and it's going to be gone, because there's nothing to worry about underneath. Like, you can't shoot the black out of blacktop, right? That's just the way it is. It's not colored black, it just is black. But if you paint the street white on top of blacktop, which is what they're doing in the video, when you graffiti it, you can't just shoot it with acid, because you'll also shoot off the white that you've painted onto the street. So in that way, you would have to have some special method to get any graffiti off of the white street. And not only like hooligans and bad parts of town, but just like even YouTubers trying to have like a fun little, trying to be stupid and have a fun little video, or just people, anyone, like kids in high school being immature and being like, oh dude, I'm gonna go draw a dick on the street. You can go get a red paintbrush, you can go get a red can of paint and spray paint it for $2, and you got a giant dick on the ground. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing that comes to mind, in addition to that, is just the fact that when you do that, all the tires on cars are rubber, and We don't see that on the ground because the ground is black, so it doesn't really affect anything. But like if you ever go put your hands all over the blacktop, you're gonna have some dirty ass hands. So what I'm thinking is you paint it, it looks great, it's really pretty, it's white, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, 48 hours later, it's covered in rubber and it looks terrible, really, really bad. So when I first heard the story, I thought maybe, they're just painting one street or two streets to make a cool thing to see, like a sightseeing thing, like maybe social media, just like something to get LA more attention. And that would totally make sense to me, 100%, because even I want to go to these white streets. When I'm in LA next, I'm gonna definitely look for these white streets. But this is not for vanity, but instead it's actually for function. So that all seems kind of weird to me. Something that my dad's best friend, who's also a mechanic, pointed out is because the paint will be a little more slick and hardened rather than having porous, like the street. When the oil gets onto that street, like it always does, when it rains, it'll make it extra slick. It could possibly cause some sort of a dry ice type of thing, a black ice type of thing for people driving. All this stuff is very valid, very interesting, and I'm sure you have 100 more thoughts on it. I do too, but I'm going to move on. But I just want to introduce this one to you guys because I'm sure you can Google this and your mind is going to be absolutely blown. The second story, a little bit shorter of a one. I'm just going to bring it up real quick, let you guys think on it, and then move on. But the second story here is that I have heard that from my pops. Again, both of these stories from my pops, so that's what got me onto this, looking at the news and stuff. California has a thing in motion where they're putting it out there. I'm sure it won't pass, but they have a thing in motion where they want to separate California into 3 separate states. I don't know what they would necessarily call them, but I would assume they would call it North, Central, and South California. But they want to separate it into 3 different states just simply because, I'm sure there's a lot of other reasons too, but because there's a separation in the politics between the different areas of California, and people, I'm assuming with this one too, again, I can't actually look into people's minds, but I'm assuming that people are irritated with some of the dumb things that LA is doing, like painting their streets white, $40,000 a mile, and just the way that they're allocating the budget. So by separating, you'd be able to control your own local budget a little bit more and have a little bit less to pay to make up for those white streets. Just as an example, car registration for a commercial car has gone something like $99 to $150 to $400 over the last couple of years, and this is just simply because of all of the different things that we are allocating budget to. So that's just an interesting little thing there, and I looked it up, and it's a thing that is at least in motion. I don't, again, think that it is going to go through, but it's a thing, and people are, they're thinking about it, and I'm okay with it. I don't know what your opinion is, but I think it would be kind of cool, simply because it's never happened in my life. I've never seen a state split. I've never seen a state secede. I've never seen a state turn into west and east, or north and south and stuff. So I think it would be really cool. To be honest though, from living in California my whole life, I think California as a whole is such an amazing thing because you have the goofy entertainment area, you have the Hollywood where you can go and see maybe you'll see a celebrity, and then you have San Diego, which is a little bit more laid back and a little bit more vacation-y. Then you can go up north and you see these beautiful places that are a lot more untouched and a lot more nature-y. And I think all of that as a whole is California, especially from driving up the coast. It's really cool. But again, I'm not scared. So bring it on, everybody. Bring it on. Now I'm going to go into some of the other stories. These are a little bit smaller stories, but these are really fun, interesting stories. So some of them a little bit more serious, some of them a little bit less serious. Here we go. The first one is, and you may have heard about this is a trend that's going on the internet, and they're comparing it to the condom snorting challenge, which, here, I'll throw you guys a few challenges for those of you who aren't up to date with some of these. A lot of kids in high school, that's kind of the age group, in college are the ones that are being hit by these challenges, but there's condom snorting challenge, which is where you sniff it up your nose and you try to get into your mouth, because that's just the way that your mouth works and the way your anatomy works. So you can snort it up your nose and then you can pull it out your mouth. That's all it is. You just take a video of it and post it. Don't ask me why, just because you can. If you can, then you will. Then there was the Tide Pod challenge, which I'm sure a lot of you guys were aware of. That one's obviously ridiculous, but a lot of people have done that. And basically, Tide Pod Challenge is just where you chew a Tide Pod in your mouth. You don't swallow it. Although some people, this is why it's so dangerous, some people are confused, especially younger kids. They think that you swallow it to be hardcore, which can totally kill you. But anyways, they're comparing this challenge to those challenges. And this challenge, you may not have seen this, it's not as popular, but it is getting popular. It's called the 24-hour overnight Ikea challenge. This challenge basically is people going into Ikea, which is a furniture store. They have like a bunch of different stuff. They have like kitchen, stuff, and they have like washing machines and beds and all this different stuff. So it's a really big store. And originally, I believe a guy stayed overnight with his friend. In Belgium in 2016. 2 guys stayed in there, and I think they were smoking in there, but they stayed in there overnight until the next day and made a video about it. It had a ton of views on YouTube, and this is what got this out there. So now the challenge for a lot of people is to go into Ikea and try to hide like in a closet, like a show closet, right? Like they have those set up so that you can see what the closet looks like. You go hide in a closet because generally Ikea employees aren't tasked with going around and checking every single nook and cranny around the store. They just assume that everyone is leaving when the lights are going off and is leaving when the closing time is happening, and maybe they scream a few times, "Hey, everyone, we're closing." But a lot of people have done this. And a lot of people are doing it right now, and it's becoming more and more popular because it's trending on Twitter and on YouTube. So look out for that. Don't do it yourself. I would not suggest it, but yeah, a lot of people are getting in trouble, and it's causing a lot of kids to get charged with like crimes, right? Because you're trespassing and you're staying overnight and possibly also stealing and defacing, property and things like that. So it's pretty crazy. This reminds me of one other challenge, which was the shipping yourself somewhere challenge, which is illegal. But basically you just get yourself inside of a box, give yourself food and water and everything else, and then you ship yourself from one spot to the other spot. A lot of people pretended to do this internationally and would like ship themselves across seas or something like that, which I don't think is possible. It's incredibly dangerous. But I think a lot of people faked it, and then a lot of kids after that were like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that too. Maybe I'll get my viral success on YouTube." So there's the first goofy story of the day. That's kind of why I like doing these podcasts too, because I like covering real stuff, but I also like covering goofy stuff because I think it's really, really funny. Now, this next story, very crazy. You heard me talk about it in the beginning. An Arizona mom is arrested after toddler ate THC-laced mac and cheese, the cop says. Elena Marie Limpert, 25, was charged with child abuse after police say her daughter ate the mac and cheese. She, first off, it's kind of a funny story. I mean, if you're not somebody who's familiar with marijuana, I know in some parts of the country it is a felony, so a lot of people have like a very, very, very down look at it. It's not heroin, okay? It's not as bad as that, but I do agree that if somebody is really, 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 really young, it is not good to have that in their blood system, and I think it is a lot for them to handle. So I don't think this is funny, but I think it is amusing. So Elena Limpert, 25, allegedly laughed when she realized her daughter, who is less than 2 years old, was experiencing the side effects of THC, a chemical found in marijuana. During the time, neither parent took the child to immediate emergency care. After laughing, Limpert proceeded to place the child into their backyard pool to use the cold water to shock her. 3 children living inside the home were removed from custody after the Arizona Department of Child Safety was notified of the incident. Limpert, according to the police, admitted to making the mac and cheese with THC for her husband, but did not know her daughter ingested it. Law enforcement officials found 2 marijuana grow tents in the garage, numerous glass bongs and pipes, hash oil, mushrooms, and within the house refrigerator discovered 3 large tubs of THC butter. She is charged with 1 count of child abuse and is scheduled to appear in court tomorrow on the 19th of April. Whew. Hefty. I'd love to hear what you guys think about all of these. I mean, I have my opinions. You guys have your opinions. So I would love to hear your opinions on this. I think it's crazy. I don't think that obviously you should be having your daughter exposed to that kind of stuff, but I don't know. It is an accident, right? And if it's medical, like I don't know if Arizona is on that medical level yet where it's like medically legal, or if it's like recreationally legal. But if it is an accident, right? Like, you don't get in trouble when your kid drinks whiskey and you're like, damn it, Roger, you get in my whiskey cabinet again, you little bastard. You don't get in trouble for that. So should we have a double standard for weed? Just something to think about. I'm not saying that I do or don't think. I'm just pointing out something. So the next news story is something that's very interesting. This is a man who ate the world's hottest pepper, which is called the Carolina Reaper pepper. He ate it and was actually sent to the hospital after really, really, really bad headaches. Now, in the past, I've eaten 3 ghost peppers before. Ghost peppers are a bit less spicy, but I had more than just one of them. And I'm just saying that because my stomach hurt so bad, I can't even explain it to you. It felt like there was shards of glass just like moving around in my stomach. And then when I pooped, it was even worse. Like, when I pooped, I was just, it was a volcano. It was just fire, just to put it lightly. So I can understand how bad this guy's head must have hurt. So it says, Chef Rodrigo Riccio with Carolina Reaper chili after an unidentified man in New York was left with thunderclap headaches. So apparently this guy has this on his restaurant menu, and he's fighting to keep it on his menu after this guy had trouble with this. So a man bit off more than he could chew when he tackled the world's hottest chili, so-called Carolina Reaper pepper, and was left with excruciating headaches. In the first ever recorded such case, the next few days after eating the veggie, the man experienced short, splitting pains lasting seconds at a time. The 34-year-old had eaten just one of the chilies at a chili eating contest in upstate New York. Immediately after the competition, he began dry heaving and developed intense neck and head pain starting at the back. That I can attest to. The dry heaving is terrible when you eat a very hot pepper like this. He then developed crushingly painful headaches, and at one point, he decided to go to the hospital. He had a slightly high blood pressure, tingling sensation. It prompted doctors to diagnose him with thunderclap headache, secondary to reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome. Damn, a temporary artery narrowing, often accompanied by thunderclap headache. No cases of RCVS secondary to peppers or cayenne has ever been previously recorded, but ingestion of cayenne pepper has been associated with coronary vasospasm and acute myocardial infarction. The man's symptom cleared up after 5 weeks, showing that the affected arteries had returned to normal width. So for 5 weeks, his arteries were constricted. That's absolutely intense. I hope you're all right, man. That's all I can say about that one. Moving on to the next one. This one's hilarious. Again, this is another one that I wish I could show you guys stuff on the podcast. But look this one up yourself. Somebody, I don't know who, but somebody printed out 100 life-sized Mark Zuckerbergs wearing a shirt set that says "Fix Facebook," and I don't know how, but he set them up on the front lawn of the White House. For some reason, I guess people are allowed to go on the White House front lawn, because it seems like people do this a lot. Like, they put shoes all over the place, or this one it looks insane. It's literally Mark Zuckerberg just cut out, and it's 5'6". So as Facebook boss, Mark Zuckerberg testified on Capitol Hill for the first time. An unnerving sight greeted visitors outside an army of 100 life-size cutouts of the CEO. The display was meant to protest disinformation ahead of the tech giant's congressional hearing. The campaign, organized by Avaz, a global activist group, featured 100 cutouts of Zuckerberg wearing a t-shirt that says "Fix Facebook." It's pretty hilarious. That's pretty much all there is to that one, but I just thought that was absolutely hilarious. I wanted to share that with you guys. Just imagine 100 life-sized cutouts of Mark Zuckerberg. This last story is another really funny one. I probably should put a feel-good one in here to wrap it up. I'll do that next time. Maybe like some person who, like, maybe a grandma bakes cookies for a fire department or something like that. This last story is, the headline is, Argentina cops who claimed mice ate missing marijuana are fired, says this report. 8 police officers in Argentina, including a former town police commissioner, have been dismissed from their post after 4 of them claimed that more than half of a ton of missing marijuana was carried off by mice. Carried off, that's great. I feel like that's a plot for, like, Dumb and Dumber or Pineapple Express. Come on, seriously? This could be a movie starring Mark Zuckerberg. The paper reported that police in the town of Pilar, about 35 miles northwest of Buenos Aires, impounded 6,000 kilos, 13,228 pounds of marijuana. But when police inspected the evidence warehouse sometime later, they found that 540 kilos were missing. During their investigation, officers found that former police commissioner Javier Specia had not signed the inventory for the pot before he left his post in April 2017. Specia and 3 of his subordinates were called before a judge, and all of them told the same story. The missing marijuana had been eaten by mice. That explanation didn't fly with forensics experts who testified that mice wouldn't have mistaken marijuana for food, and if they had done so, a lot of corpses would have been found in the warehouse. A spokesperson for Judge Adrian Gonzalez Charvet told The Guardian. Specia and 3 of his officers must testify before the judge next month to help determine whether the weed vanished, in the spokesperson's word, by connivance of negligence. So basically, what that means is that they got to go in front of the judge one more time and explain that they really do truly believe that the mice carried it off. And again, it's not up to them to prove where it went. It's just that they have to testify in front of a court that they are not lying, there's no perjury, and that they don't know where the weed went. If any of them falters and doesn't stick to their plan, if there is a plan, maybe they are telling the truth, but if they're lying and they really did steal the weed and one of them tells, then all of them will be in trouble. Plus, the ones that were lying still will also get perjury charges, which are not cool. So that's pretty crazy. Some of the comments are pretty funny. The cop must have had an ice mocha because he has a bad memory, because ice mocha has a lot of weed in it. At least they had the same lame story. They went with Hillary's emails. Oh yeah, that's just like the old "my dog ate my homework," except it didn't work then either. That's hilarious. Hey, hopefully they didn't do it just to sell it. I mean, I don't know. That's some crazy stuff. I feel like that's pretty goofy. I feel like that really is a plot from a movie. That's it for this news podcast. I want to know what you guys think about this. If you do like the news podcast, I'd love to do more of them because I really do think these are funny. I will cover more serious news, but I really like the crazy, bizarre, odd news, the intriguing news, as well as the news that's real, like that is actually like big time stuff, like, California painting the streets white, but is still intriguing and stuff. So I like to bring these interesting highlights to you guys. I probably go through about 30 or 40 of these stories to find the ones that I think are fun to talk about, because there's also plenty of other ones which are like, this company has allotted this much money, or this company has gone bankrupt, blah, 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 blah. That's not quite as fun to me. I like these goofy ones. So if you can, leave a comment under the SoundCloud, or if you're watching this on YouTube, which is something I'm going to start doing, is recording some of these podcasts for my second channel. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd also love to hear any podcast ideas that you would like to hear me talk about here, whether serious, personal, professional advice, whatever it is, fitness, acne, anything. I would love to hear about it from you guys. So leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the podcast where we lock you in a room and make you listen to Rick Astley. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down for the next 24 hours. And afterwards, we take you out and put you on live TV and tell the world what's that one thing that you always wanted to tell everybody. Put you on Ellen and have you tell your life dream right after all that. See how you do. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so by using my Amazon code, AmazonBrian.com. It'll take you to the homepage of Amazon. From there, anything you purchase will give us a small commission for the next 24 hours. Without costing you a single dime. It helps promote this podcast. It helps host this podcast and pay for some of the equipment and hosting fees. I love you guys. Thank you for checking out the episode, and I'll see you in the very next one. Adios.